Hey guys, breaking down a roll of one of my subscribers, Dave. He is the man in the blue gi on the bottom, and he's having some problems with guard retention. So here, Dave, you start framing, but you fall onto the side of your hip, and you kind of just stop moving. You're trying to get your top knee in, and your opponent's able to move right into side control. And they bring their hand in front of your hips, grab the cuff of your pants, and pull you flat onto your back. So one of the problems that you're making here is that you're kind of just sitting in limbo in this halfway point. Here is your base, your platform of support, but your center of gravity is shifted right to the very edge of it because you're kind of leaning back in a lazy style. If you're in a seated position, you want to be leaning forward. So now it's very easy for your opponent to drive into you, and it's not your call that you're falling to your back. That's putting them ahead. So here, he's about to set up an X pass. You're framing the bicep. That's fine, but you have no base behind you. And so when he channels force into that frame, it just flattens you out. Now you have another good frame here against his shoulder, except these frames are never going to last forever. You have to be constantly adjusting your hips to make sure that the frames are aligned to the proper force vectors. And then obviously you need to be in good base.
What the fuck?
In order to have mobility in your hips, you have to have your feet planted in the ground, live toes, so you're going to be able to actually bridge and perform shrimps to get your hips away to create space to establish frames. So here I'll just go over some of the things you could have done. Hey Dave, so in this sequence, you managed to actually win the engagement phase and get a grip, and then instead of really doing anything with it, it looks like you kind of froze there, and then your opponent started to win range battles in which you needed to be responding. So we're going to be looking at this from like a guard retention aspect. So we just turn around here. Your opponent had this cross grip and had a grip on the pants and so at this point we know the pass that he's going to start looking at. There was one moment where you're controlling the head here. One thing that you're doing is you're sitting kind of like in this middle ground of the seated position in which your center of gravity is right at the very edge of your base back here. And so when it comes to the seated position, we want to try and be a lot more forward, or we want to have this post behind us. So like as you were controlling his head at one point, if I got proper base here, going through my hand, through my shoulders to my other arm, controlling with the collar grip, even here as Kevin tries to escape or tries to pass, it's going to be much more difficult for him to actually put me away. You were sitting back like this, and so as your opponent started to drive into you, like I was breaking down, you just end up falling back. So try and make sure that you're seated forward or that you have a proper post behind you. If you feel like you are starting to go backwards, then go backwards, but go backwards on your own terms. So even just from here, he's got this grip, but by me just choosing, no, I've lost this range battle, I can recede and then put my feet immediately to his hips or put it onto his shoulder or bicep to start breaking that grip. Then, as he's here, you frame the bicep. Once again, you didn't have the proper base behind you, so even though you had this happened. If I'm framing here, I'm going to switch my base to now this hand on the ground. So now if Kevin tries to complete the sweep, or on this pass, sorry, I'm always going to be able to mobilize my hips and get away. But we were here, and then you got dropped down. So as we dropped here, you had this arm framing, but you weren't actually framing at the head, and you weren't pushing him away. I don't know if you're grabbing the collar or something. So here, Kevin now looks to just finish this pass, and I just get my hips turned away. So as Kevin looks to finish this pass, I turn in and I frame away. I push his head away from my body so he's no longer completely parallel to me, and I can look to mobilize my hips with live toes to hip away and reestablish guard. Then you brought the top leg in, so once he was starting to get to side control here on your knee, you were working on bringing this top knee in, which is not what we want to do, and you also had your feet completely off the mat. Live toes, and only that bottom leg. That bottom leg is the leg that we needed to bring in. So if I just quickly talk about this for all the white belts out there, or even the higher belts, the reason why we bring this top leg in is because if I pin this leg to the mat, whether it's by my hip or by my arm, Kevin's hip doesn't turn at all. Look, nothing. And then this top leg still is able to be a part of the equation. He can perform a high leg frame on my shoulder. He's going to be very successful here. If he brings the top leg in, and I redirect it as a lever and staple it to the mat, look what's happened to his hips. He's now pinned down facing towards the ground. And can you do anything with your right leg right now, Kevin? No. I get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I take out this leg and it automatically ends up blocking the other one. So if you guys work on bringing this top knee in only, better guys are going to just redirect with their hip and smash it, kill both legs, and finish with the pass. Kevin brings in this bottom leg. Now even if nothing happens here, he's able to mobilize his hips and use frames to manage the range. So now that your opponent has solidified side control, you need to start looking to block the crossface by getting your right hand onto the inside of his left bicep instead of kind of holding over top like you are there. Here you're grabbing his pants, trying to frame out the hip, doesn't do enough, and he reacts well and just goes right up into a knee wrap. You start grabbing underneath at the ankle, which can be fine, but you're still not really in good base. Your feet keep floating. And he chooses to lower his center of gravity back to side control, and as he pops back up, you're going to do the same thing, shoving your right arm underneath. Problem is that he's got a grip on your gi right now, and so we need to be aware that he's got really good control, as well as he's going to possibly have the opportunity to go for a baseball bat choke like he's going to. One of your arms is already trapped now, and so you're no longer able to engage in the hand fight here. He is now able to easily get that grip, and now you start bringing your hands in, but it's a little too late. And so now he's able to just start moving around to north-south to finish that choke. So at least in the earlier stages, you need to be protecting your neck more, and you really need to be just consistently moving, constantly bridging, trying to cause Kazushi, off balancing your opponent, shifting their center of gravity so they're unable to be successful. Here, you're kind of leaning back in this midway point of seated and on your back, and here your opponent manages to get the leg crossed against the center line here of his body, and so he's able to start moving around. It's no longer acting as a frame. And then, I mean, right now, you're literally doing nothing.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
So now with no base, you're basically a turtle on your back. Your opponent's able to go up to north-south and then come back to side control. All right, Dave, so this was a battle you were actually completely winning. Once again, we need you to actually start looking at working from that engagement phase and attacking. So here you had a grip on the collar, you had a grip on the sleeve, and you're framing away this hip. So you're opening his elbow up away from his body, and you're affecting his posture and his structure. He's got just this little grip on the outside of your leg. This is where you should be angling your hips, creating mobility, so we can start to work on setting up a triangle. You had such a great position here to start attacking, but you kind of sat there like a deer in the headlights. So recognize that you had won that range battle. You were the one winning. Move ahead and start going for your submissions or for your sweeps. What ended up happening is you sat here, and so your opponent started moving around you, and then you tried to bring your foot in. Just move here. The problem is that you didn't move your hips, and so you brought your foot kind of here to the center line, and then your opponent was able to still just kind of move around it, and it fell out. Hip mobility is a big part of why you're having some failures here. So as I'm in this position, one, if I feel like this is getting pushed by me, foot to the bicep. If I feel like I don't have the mobility here, then just work on shifting your hips. By shifting your hips, we no longer have to use flexibility. I'm not trying to externally rotate my leg like this to use flexibility to get out. If I have the flexibility, great. But otherwise, all I need to do is just adjust my hip angle, and now I got my leg in a strong leg press alignment. Now I can come back and I can break the control. If you feel like you're just blocked this way, we can go over top. I'm going to extend my leg outwards to the outside of his leg or his arm, and I'm going to bring it over top like a lasso. So whether I bring it onto the bicep or I just kick it out wide and I bring my leg around, or even to the shoulder. Even just from the aspect of here, then I bring it to his hip. Now I got both sides of his hip blocked, so if he moves to his left, he moves to his right, just standard guard. I have that established. Then, those stages failed and you feel like your leg is still blocked, you have this collar grip on this mirrored side. So I'm going to be able to frame this collar into his neck. So I create a nice tight grip and I punch with my fist. So as he tries to go past my guard, I'm going to look to build up into base here. And then as he keeps driving into me, I'm framing into his shoulder. I'm going to be able to frame and hip escape. So here, If it's a cross collar, it doesn't work. If you just turn slightly, here, if I push like this, see how it just unwinds the gi here away from his neck. But if I can push the collar on this side, it's gonna push into his neck. So here, I'm losing this. He's starting to get this pass. Recognize this. Sit up. He's not doing anything to control my upper body yet. If I was to sit here, let him get on top of me, and go, well, Rory said, oh shit, I might even get armbarred from here. He is controlling the legs because this is where he needs to win the range battle. So as he's trying to beat the legs, and he has, I move up, framing him. And then as he tries to continue moving around me, I'm mobile. So once again, if I just sit here and he goes around me, oh crap. But here, he tries to go around me. I want to be able to turn faster than him because he's got to go around the circumference of the circle, creating a bigger arc than I do, just pivoting on this axis point. So this is nice. From here, you turn away. You look to try and get, with your elbow, get his arm off of your hip enough that you're going to be able to turn up into the turtle. Problem is that you're dead toes here. And so as you start to midget wrestle with him, you immediately end up kind of falling back. It looks like you're also going to pull guard, but instead of getting to a butterfly guard, you end up just kind of getting smashed in a half guard here. Your opponent's got the underhook, and he's already got a cross face on you. So that was just poor range management at that point. You needed live toes, and I would have opted for trying to drive him over, or at least make sure you're in full butterfly guard. Here you gotta be looking to block the crossface. Don't hold on to him like this. He's not trying to hit you. Only hold your opponent close to you if there's actually striking involved. And don't cross your left foot over your right leg like this.
I like your plan, except it sucks.
There's no actual closed circuit here. Your left leg isn't actually really making much of any contact with your opponent here. And if anything, it only further externally rotates your left hip here, which I know you're not a flexible guy, so this isn't good control. And we're going to watch this fail pretty soon here. So your opponent is securing the upper body. And once the upper body is very well secured here, you guys are first just getting kicked out to the side. So here you go back. Look how open that space is. Look how open your knee is. He's able to just push that open, accessing it as a lever, externally rotating your hip more, and just basically perform a bit of a high step or back step out of that position, easily getting into side control there. You want to look to form a proper half guard with a hook, or at least even triangle your legs would provide a stronger closed circuit to make sure that your legs are working together to maximize the clamping pressure. From here, your opponent's going to start moving in towards north-south, and he's going to start setting up the north-south choke. So as soon as he's got this grip over top of your head with his forearm behind your neck, and he's able to turn your chin out to the side with his ribs, and then you're kind of screwed here in the north-south, stuck inside this choke. So I'm just going to break down a little quick thing that you can do to protect yourself. All right, Dave, so you're talking about getting hit with the north-south choke a bunch. Your opponent is bringing the arm around your head here, and then they're moving outwards like this. The goal is to have their bicep occlude the artery on my left side of my neck, and his rib cage is going to be occluding the artery on the right side of my neck. So as he sinks down, nice tight blood choke. Now, what I need to do, one, just from the side control position, blocking the crossface. If I'm blocking the crossface and properly framing him out here, if he tries to bring his elbow over top looking for that, I'm going to be able to start looking for elbow pushes, etc. If I'm here and he starts to bring this arm over top of my neck, two things. One, I mean, I can absolutely grip here like you were, but if this is all I'm doing, his body's going to overpower my arm. One, keep my chin tucked into him. So if we could have just turned completely around this way. So what Kevin's looking at doing is taking his ribs and dropping it on the side of my neck, like this. If that happens, I'm going to have a bad time. If I just tuck my chin in like this, now if he tries to apply the choke, even if he sinks everything in, finish the choke down. It's just going into my chin. It's uncomfortable, but it's not enough to finish me. Now I know you talked about your neck being sore, so that's obviously not enough as it is. But I tuck my chin in, and then as he's trying to sink down, I'm going to be using my forearms to push up into his neck or face to not allow him to sink down. He needs to drop his shoulder into my neck. So as I'm here, I tuck my chin in slightly, he wraps around, he's starting to look to finish the dorsal choke, and I'm going to reinforce with the Y-frame against my forearm. I'm going to put that against his neck here, so sink down and finish the choke count. I'm going to be able to start possibly inverting off that, or at least forcing to back to side control. So Dave, I hope some of this was helpful, and I hope some of the subscribers watching this video found it helpful. I look forward to breaking down some of your roles or competition footage in the future.